Hi guys, it's Phoebe. Welcome back to my channel. I hope that this filming angle is a little bit better. I tried to set things up a little bit differently. We'll see how it works. Now, I don't know why, but March feels like it was the longest month ever in terms of books. I'm trying to remember if some of these are ones that I read in February, but I feel like they were all March. I don't know. It's been a blur. That being said, this is in no particular, well, the order is, I'm just reaching it on the top of my bin, and so it's going to be pretty much working my way backwards. So the last book that I read in the month of March was The Valkyrie's Daughter by Tiana Warner. I heard about this a long time ago. I don't think it was on TikTok. I think it was on BookTube. But I really enjoyed this book. It is about, I guess she's not technically a Valkyrie. She's been raised by the Valkyries, though. But the difference is that Valkyries are paired with a white winged mare at birth, and Sigrid, our main character, was paired with a normal horse. So she kind of has spent her young childhood and like young adulthood, teenage years, really wanting to fit in with the Valkyries around her, when she's just kind of been relegated to stable hand because of the horse that she was paired with at birth. And kind of the set off of the action of this book is that in her kingdom, and this is all based on Norse mythology in case that wasn't clear, but in her kingdom or whatever, there is a prophetess who has an eye that helps her see the future. These other Valkyries come in and steal it. And so the Valkyries that Sigrid has grown up around go off to try to get it. But Sigrid wants to kind of prove herself, so she ends up setting off on her own, not on her own, with a mixed match group of companions to try to get it back herself. I did really enjoy this book. Maybe, but when I'm trying to think of like what I enjoyed about it, I'm just like, I don't know, I didn't have any complaints. There is a really great women-loving woman romance in this book. It's really action-packed. I read it really quickly, not like in one sitting, but like a day. And I'm really looking forward. This is gonna be a duology, so there's a second book coming out this summer, and I am really looking forward to that. I also read American Gods by Neil Gaiman. This is a book, our main character, Shadow, gets released from prison, and he thinks that he's going to go back and live with his wife, and he has a job lined up. But when his wife mysteriously passes away, right when he gets released from prison, he's a little unmoored. He gets picked up by this guy who goes by Wednesday, and he's basically hired as a bodyguard. And this kind of follows their adventures across America, without giving too much away about this book that came out like 20 years ago. I did think this book was really interesting, really different in traditional Neil Gaiman fashion. My complaint for this book would be that it wasn't, for as long as it is, there's not a lot of action. I felt like there wasn't a lot of things that really happened. It was still a fun read, and for as thick as it is, I still did read it pretty quickly. It kept my interest, but the book seems to be building up to like this big battle, like hundreds and hundreds of pages. It's like they're talking about this battle and things are happening that are leading up to this battle. And then when it comes to it, spoiler alert, the main character, Shadow, kind of talks everyone out of this battle. So to me, that felt pretty anticlimactic. So I can't say that I loved this book, but I'm not mad that I read it either. I also read Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I didn't really know anything about this book going into it. Just one of my favorite YouTubers talks about it all the time. So I just picked it up. I think I would have enjoyed this book, not to say that I didn't enjoy it now. This book would have meant a lot more to me, I think, in high school This is about our main character, Frances, is in, I guess, the equivalent of American high school, but in England. And she has friends, but they don't really know her really well. And she has this really, I don't know the word, active internet life that's pretty different from how she presents herself to her friends at school and like her social circle. And she's really into this podcast about is the podcast Radio Silence, or is the character in the podcast Radio Silence? Maybe it's both. Anyway, she's really into this podcast, and she does a lot of like fan art and stuff on her Tumblr for this podcast. And it's this big mystery of who the creator is, and she ends up meeting the creator, and it turns out he's the guy who lives across the street from her. And they start collaborating where she does art for the podcast. I'm really hoping my cat doesn't knock over my tripod. Okay. So the book just really follows a lot of like high school type relationships and high school type issues that I think would be especially meaningful and like relatable to people who grew up who were maybe teenagers a few years ago, and like Tumblr was a big thing. I don't know, maybe Tumblr, I don't think Tumblr is still a thing with teenagers. It felt like something that resonated to what I remember high school being like. So I thought this was a really good book. I do wish that maybe I had read this when I was a teenager, because I think it would have been more impactful for me. Another book I read, this had to have been in February. So this has to be a mix of February and March books. Maybe that's why the month seems like it was so long. Anyway, this is The Other Misses by Mary Kubica. This is a thriller about a couple who move into Maine. They're a couple from Chicago that move to Maine because the husband's sister has just completed suicide and left her like teenage daughter behind. So they move and they move into her house and basically adopt her teenage daughter, and they have kids of their own. And then there is a mysterious murder of a woman who lives on their street, and this book is about getting to the bottom of that, basically. I did not enjoy this book because I guessed the twist pretty early on, and I was right, and I had to wait for so long to get the payoff for it. It was just kind of a boring thriller. It dragged on too long, and like I said, the twist was really easy to guess. And I know that some people will argue that like a good twist is a twist that you can guess because like the clues are there, but I don't know. It was just frustrating that it was taking these people so long to come to the conclusion that I had come to long ago. So didn't really love that. And another Kristen Hanna book. This one is Home Again. Our main character in this one is a heart surgeon. Her name is Madeline. And she has a teenage daughter named Lena, and they're having issues. Lena is a rebellious teenager. And let's see. So Lena's dad left the picture before she was born. He is now a famous movie star. Lena doesn't know that. His brother, so Lena's uncle, it doesn't matter that he's a priest, but he's really involved in her life and helping out with Madeline. I'm literally reading the back to remind myself of what happened. Because I don't really remember. I do remember that I didn't really enjoy this. What is the other Kristen Hanna book? Hang on, let me go check. I think it's Angel Falls is the other book by Kristen Hanna that this one I thought was really similar to, which was another Kristen Hanna book that I didn't enjoy. Again, I think that's right looking at my shelf, but I have a lot of Kristen Hanna books. and I didn't feel like pulling them all out and reading the backs of them. But anyway, I don't highly recommend this book unless you just want some easy reading, because at least it's not very thick. I also read The Ash Princess, Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. This follows the princess Theodosia. Her kingdom has been overtaken by a conquering kingdom, and they've basically just kept her alive and around to be a symbol of how they've taken control of everything. It's called Ash Princess because her mom had some kind of, it's a fantasy book, so of course they have like, the people that Theodosia is a part of have like power over elements that can be enhanced by these gems that are only found in her kingdom, which is why they got conquered. And her mom, the queen, had power over fire and was like the fire queen or something like that. So she's the Ash Princess and has to wear a crown of ashes at like royal engagements, banquets, and random stuff. I feel like that was my big and only really complaint about the book, is that you cannot, how would you make a crown out of ashes? How would you fashion the crown out of ashes and have it stay together enough to be on someone's head and not just immediately fall apart? That just really bugged me in all of those scenes. I was like, it's physically impossible. And so it just completely like took me out of the moment, because they would be talking about like her putting on an ash crown, and you can't put on an ash crown. They're ashes. Like, it would fall apart anyway, but no one asked me. So the book is about, she is trying to win freedom for her kingdom. There's 2 other books after this. I will say it was interesting enough that I will read the second book, and hope for the best. It's not a literary masterpiece, but it's fine for some entertainment. Next up, I have The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I feel like everyone and their cousin, except for me, has read by now. This book follows a young man who moves from California to, I want to say it's Vermont, somewhere in New England. He moves to New England for college, and he ends up studying the classics, and he ends up multiple times. Anyway, he falls in with a very select group of classics students, and at first he's really enthralled by them and really sucked into their world, but as the story continues, he kind of realizes the darker side of their lives, and things kind of end up falling apart. He gets in over his head. Big dark academia vibes for this book. Obviously, I think everyone knows that. I did think it was really well written. I really enjoyed reading it. One of the things I did after I finished it, I know that I've seen like 1-star reviews for this book, and when I finished it, I was like, 1 star seems like really harsh. So I was on Goodreads, and I like just selected the 1-star reviews. And I have to say, everyone I feel like that gave it a 1-star review, I didn't read like the 2 or 3 stars. So maybe those reviewers had better points. But the 1-star reviewers, I felt like missed the point of the book because they were complaining about how, I don't even know the main character's name. It's because it's in first person, so they don't say it very often. But I feel like the 1-star reviewers' complaints were that he was really misled by these people, and like they have no redeeming qualities and they just suck. And it's like, yeah, that's the point, that they're really wealthy and they suck, and like he gets sucked in by them, and he doesn't see how much they suck at first, but then he figures it out as time goes on. So anyway, that has nothing really to do with my review. I thought this book was good. I'm just going to review together, because it's a duology I read by Victoria Schwab, This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet. As always, I really enjoy Victoria Schwab's work. I will say, starting out in the first book, there were some questions I had about her world building that I wish got answered sooner. And I feel like not all of my questions got answered, but at the end of the day, I can't be too mad about it. The story was really good. So in this universe, America has kind of fallen apart. And in this like post-apocalyptic society, it's really gotten split up into like cities that are kind of like walled off and secured because monsters, I forget the reasoning behind this. This is part of my complaint about like explaining the world building. But these monsters have started appearing, and there's different ones for different areas. And these monsters crop up whenever something bad happens, like something bad leading to death. It creates a monster, and depending on the tragedy, that it brings out a different monster that's created from that tragedy. So the book follows a boy named August who is one of these monsters, and he really wants to be human. He really doesn't mean anyone ill will, but his family is kind of pushing him in certain directions. And our other character is Kate, and her father is kind of the, not really ruler, but basically a ruler of one of these like cities. And she's kind of been raised and conditioned to be really cruel and like not the best person. But it ends up these two characters meet, and they kind of just want the best for their city and their people. They just don't know how to achieve it yet. This is kind of a dark duology, darker than I was expecting. But like I said, I always love Victoria Schwab, so no real complaints there. Last, I'm going to be really silly and hold up on my Kindle. You can see the cover. I read Tripping Arcadia by Kit Mayquist. And I'm going to put that down now. I just really that was the only book that I read that wasn't a physical copy, and I just wanted to hold up a cover. That book I really did not enjoy. I think of all of those books, that might have been my lowest rated. It follows a young woman who her family is really not doing well. She's recently dropped out of medical school and is trying to get a job to help support her family, and ends up accepting a fairly mysterious job offer from a fairly wealthy family that her father actually used to work for, and gets like sucked into this dark world of drugs and partying that this family is a part of. But she has a hard time getting out of it because they're paying her exorbitant amounts of money. It's marketed as a gothic novel. I don't know if I would call it that. It just had a very modern feel to it, and I know that I guess gothic doesn't have to be set like in past years, but to me it didn't feel very gothic. And I also found it overall very boring, very convoluted. Just like things made no sense. Characters made choices that made no sense. Things they were getting into made no sense. Just a very strange book. I think that was another book that I saw on TikTok. So I'm adding it to the list of why I'm not ever going to read another book that I was suggested to you on TikTok. And I'm looking at my TBR right now, and I'm like, ooh, I think I'm good. I think that was the last one. We'll see. Anyway, that is all of the books that I read in, I guess, part of February and all of March. I'll try to get back on a more monthly regular filming schedule so that I know when I read what I read. Thanks for watching.